All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for attending our thought leadership event today. My name is Arlene Gallagher. I am the Director of Client Relationships at Women Back to Work. And I am very excited to be here with a great team of women who represent our fabulous client and partner, Pfizer. You know, many companies talk about valuing diversity and encourage hiring diversity in their workforce, hiring more women, more people of color. But Pfizer has really taken concrete steps to make this happen. So today, we're going to shift the focus on why we should have diversity in our workforce and why it's critical to how to get this done. And our goal today is to provide actionable items for all of you that can be implemented within your organization or within your department. So joining me today are Lisa Meadows, Allie Morrison, and Wanda Mason. So welcome, ladies. And if you would each take a moment to introduce yourselves. Lisa, if you want to start.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Meadows, Senior Manager, Diversity Talent Engagement Lead. I've been with Pfizer for 3 years, and my role is to identify, engage, and hire diverse talent, specifically women and people of color, for leadership roles within our organization. However, my broader focus is to provide diversity hiring support at all levels throughout our organization. Glad to be here.
Wanda, you want to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Wanda Mason, and I am the Transformation and Strategy Site Lead for Pfizer Rocky Mount. And part of my role is the change management initiatives, our innovation initiatives, and our leadership strategic management. I've been with Pfizer for 2 years now, and I've had about 20 plus years throughout the pharma industry, and I'm super excited to be with you guys here today.
And Allie.
Yeah, thanks, Arlene. I'm Allie Morrison, and I'm the Director of People Experience for Pfizer's Rocky Mount, North Carolina site. I've been in this role for about 2 years, but with Pfizer overall for 5. Prior to that, I've had the opportunity to work in human resources, communication, and strategy across a number of different industries, working with several Fortune 100 companies. So glad to be here and share some thoughts today.
So I'm glad you're all here too. So my first question is, and this can be for any of you, obviously Pfizer sees the value of hiring diverse candidates. It's a huge company initiative. So exactly what is the value that Pfizer sees, and why do you all keep doing it, and how do you keep doing it?
Yeah, so I can start that one, Arlene. It was probably my second week working for Pfizer, and I happened to be watching a broadcast with our CEO, Albert Bourla. And someone asked him the question, what is the business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion? And like I said, I've worked for a number of large companies, so I was expecting to hear him give statistics around creating shareholder value or revenues in more diverse companies. But his answer sort of surprised me. He said, I don't need a business case for diversity because it's the right thing to do. And I think that really sets the tone from the top in terms of what we do in the DEI space.
That's awesome. Thank you. So, Lisa, my first question is going to be to you. You manage diversity hiring, and we know that at Women Back to Work, we know that you were looking to hire more women at Pfizer. So, what made you think of returners, and what convinced you that a program like this could work?
Sure. Thanks, Arlene, for the question. So to start off with, we all know that due to the pandemic over the past couple of years, too many women have left the workforce to care for their families, to transition, to transition to homeschooling their children, or were just laid off due to company closures. We all know just how difficult it is also to re-enter the workforce once you have that employment gap. So based on the hiring volume we had at Pfizer's 2 largest sites, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Pfizer's unwavering support and commitment to increasing female talent and achieving parity, we saw an opportunity to step outside of the traditional norm of hiring women who are currently in the workforce and have pharma industry experience and create an avenue for women to return to work. We saw this as a win for Pfizer and a win for women, but we needed a partner to help support our recruitment efforts and to educate us on how best to achieve success with our Women Returnship initiative. And that partner became Women Return to Work.
That's awesome. So, how much of a hard sell was it for you to sell the returnship program? And did you need to get buy-in? And if you did, from whom?
It really wasn't a hard sell for Pfizer when we presented the idea of creating a women's returnship initiative to our executive leadership, because Pfizer is committed, as I said earlier, to diversity. We are committed to achieving parity for both women and U.S. minorities. And as Ali mentioned earlier, our chairman and CEO, Albert Bourla, says it's the right thing to do. I don't know how much clearer you can get than that, right? However, we still needed to get executive sponsorship for our Women Returnship initiative. So we had to show that the focused efforts of hiring women returners would have on each of our sites from a diversity metric standpoint and from a cultural and employee impact, which is really important because that helps organizations get that buy-in and helps them to institute this. Listen, it's challenging to have diversity accepted if leaders and hiring managers don't have an inclusive mindset and are open to seeing and understanding the benefits of a diverse workforce. How to do this comes from educating and informing them through DEI trainings and also partnering with organizations like Women Back to Work to educate companies on the benefits of hiring women returners and share the tremendous success that organizations that you have partnered with have had, including Pfizer. It's a win-win situation.
So thank you, Lisa. That was a ton of awesome information. So does that training come, like you talked about training coming from like the site? Is that from the DE&I team? Is it from Ali? Is it coming from hiring managers like Wanda? Where does it come from?
It's really a partnership. It's a partnership for us in terms of our internal DEI organization through with our learning and development team, but also most importantly, it's Women Back to Work educating us as human resources, educating our hiring managers to understand that there is a difference when we are looking to hire women returners. And I'll go a little more into that later, but there is a difference. So that training comes from both internal and external.
Awesome. So Wanda, I'd love to move on over to you. Sure. So as a hiring leader and a hiring manager, right, what were your thoughts? What were you thinking as you started reviewing resumes of candidates that had a gap in their resume? And when you were interviewing these candidates, how did you assess the individual? And then, what was it that you were looking for?
Well, great. Thanks, Arlene, for the question. Really, what I was looking for, first and foremost, was someone that had already had previous experience with what my role was that I was looking for. However, I was super excited about the opportunity to actually get to interview some of our returners because I wanted to be able to connect life experiences and their community experiences during their time away from the workplace to work skills, right? To our workplace skills, to our workplace capabilities, and those things that we needed, whether it was from a cultural standpoint of how someone approaches things, because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, right? So it really shouldn't matter whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're in your community, the level of integrity that you have. And I wanted to see that connection between it. The interview process was actually fantastic. One of the things that I'm super thankful for is that Women Back to Work was very diligent. You and your team were very, very diligent in making sure that myself and the other hiring managers that wanted to utilize the program were very clear about this isn't necessarily an interview that you would do for someone that has not had a gap in their work experience, right? You want to approach it slightly differently so that the person can feel that they are connecting to the role and not feel like their gap is a hindrance in any way. Because a lot of times it was more of an asset because it gave them a broader perspective on life. It gave them a broader viewpoint on life, and it let them know how much we valued your life outside of work. The fact that we would go specifically after women that are returning to work because they've taken some time to take care of their life, whatever that may be, right? That we value that enough to say, now that you're ready to enter back into the workplace, we value your time, and we're going to show you how much we value it, and enough to be able to translate it to the work life skills or the work skills that we need in the workplace.
You know, one of my favorite things when I'm talking to, whether it's hiring managers or a new company that's come to women back to work, and we talk about talking to the hiring managers, I always say, you know, no woman is at home when they're not working eating bonbons, right? They're not, because they're like running the PTA, or they're, gosh, getting a master's degree, or helping their church, or helping at the senior center. They're doing so much, and so many of what they're doing is easily transferable when they go back to work to earn that paycheck, right? Because they're all working at home, but when they go to work, they actually get that check every other week. So you hired a returner. What was that role?
Was for a senior data analyst, and my returner that we actually went ahead with and hired, she had an 8-year gap. And I understanding that in most companies, or not most, I won't say most, but some companies, that may have been a deterrent, right? You know, that technology moves so quickly. Our equipment processes are different. But at the end of the day, when you have the template or the background of the skills, and this particular returner, while doing her break, she still worked on herself, right? She continued to do the continuous improvement and the continuing education programs, even while she was at home taking care of her children, because that's what she took her time off for, was to raise her children. And I found that to be both inspiring and motivational, because she made sure that she stayed on top of her skill set, even while taking care of her life, right? And that was something that was very important. And she's come in, and granted, you know, Pfizer, just like any other company, we have our very specific acronyms, and we have our specific lingo and things and way of doing things. And our way of doing something may be completely different to someone else or another company. But she's coming and she's taken the bull by the horns. Like, she has definitely made this her own and become a part of the Pfizer family, especially the Rocky Mount Pfizer family. She goes around and she's talking to people. She wants to know what's going on, how she can help, where she can continue to put those skills that she has to work. And what I find so inspiring is that she's been with us for a few months now. She actually started the week that we were hit with the tornado. So can you imagine that in your very first few days, you know, you're hit with a major natural disaster and you're wondering what decision did I make? But that wasn't her. Like, she continued to wonder, when can I come back? You know, what time, when will the site be back open? How can I help? Is there anything I can do? You know, it was just those community and at home, get in there and get the job done, fill in the gap in any way, that translated over into the workplace. And I am so thankful and grateful that she is a part of my team. She is thriving in the role. As a matter of fact, we've had someone from a different site come in and help out with a project that she's on, and they have nothing but accolades and kudos for her, because she has done so much to make sure that she's up to par. And she never wants to seem as though, oh, well, just because I took this time off, I don't know what I'm doing. No, she goes above and beyond, and we are super grateful for her.
An 8-year gap is a good gap, right?
It's a big gap. It is, but it worked out well for her. It gave her a very different perspective, and it's allowed her to bring that freshness to the workplace as well.
Yeah. So if you were talking to if you went to a conference and you were talking to someone else, a different company, and you let it out that you hired someone who hadn't worked in 8 years, and someone said, "Oh my gosh," what would your answer? How could you do that? I could never hire someone with an 8-year gap. What would
I
your
would tell them that first of all, I've definitely become a Pfizer-y, right? So part of our core values are, we have 4 very core values, and they are courage, excellence, equity, and joy. And I tend to say that a lot within my life as well, Um, and one of those things in terms of the courage is to think big, think outside of the box, right? Just because someone has had that gap, what were they doing during that time that could actually be an asset for you,
Yep.
your team, your role, your company, or the partnerships that you are making within your company, right? And then to think about the equity standpoint of being inclusive and act with integrity. Because if you turn it the other way around, if you were the one that needed to take care of a life event, or or just took some time for yourself, wouldn't you want that to be valued by your company? Whether that's a company that you work for now or a company that you'd like to work for in the future. You want that to be valued enough to where they're going to see you as an asset, whether you've decided to take care of your life or whether you've continued on in your career straight through. You are valuable. Your thoughts are valuable. Your actions are valuable. And what you bring to the table, that differing perspective, that diversity, is truly an asset for us, because you bring something different that someone else that may not have taken a gap would never have thought about. And that may be our breakthrough.
That's awesome. And it's really amazing. The more you talk to people, the more you hear how many people did take a break, right? And maybe it was because they had a child, or maybe someone in their family got sick, or maybe they were laid off, right? And it took them a year to find another job, or they needed a mental health break. There's 1,001 reasons for those breaks. And I think we all know someone who had to take a break. And I think we all know that that person would make just a fabulous employee if someone took the time, right, to dive into what they did during the break as well as their work history. So awesome, Wanda. Thank you. So, Allie, I'd love to ask you a question. Rocky Mount is a very large and a very unique site, not only because of the tornado that hit all of you. Your site had multiple hiring managers hiring a lot of different skill sets, right? We had the program manager role, data analyst, and multiple engineering roles. So, can you share with us um, the hiring manager's impression of the program? And were there any hesitations? And if there were, what were they? And how did you, because you were leading that site, how did you address them?
Yeah, it's a great question, Arlene. Honestly, going into the program, I anticipated some questions from hiring managers, some concerns, some of the exact things that Wanda mentioned around technology changing and processes changing. But honestly, this program really resonated with our hiring managers. And I think for all of the reasons that you mentioned, Arlene, everyone really could see themselves or their spouses or their sisters or family members. So many people have that experience of taking a break from the workforce and then facing some unique barriers when they go back to return. My household is a bit unique in the fact that my husband is actually the one who took a career break to help support our kids, but he's very much in the same kind of returner boat now that many of our interviewees and colleagues that are joining through this program are. So I think one of the biggest things was we found hiring managers who had roles that were a good fit, but who also had that passion. I mean, just listening to Wanda talk about her passion around the program, that to me is what makes the biggest difference. And the great thing is when those hiring managers have good experiences and they share them, that just continues to build momentum around this program in support of our DEI initiatives.
Awesome. Thank you. So we were fortunate enough with this wonderful partnership to place many women at Pfizer. So, Allie, I'd love to talk about the onboarding process, because we know that that can really make a difference in someone's before they start, once they start, and how, how they're feeling, right? And especially for women and, moms who haven't worked in a while. So can you walk us through the onboarding process at Pfizer and maybe what was done to help these women assimilate to going to work every single day?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a few things. I mean, Pfizer overall, for all of our individuals who are joining our company, we do a new employee orientation the first 2 days that really goes through all of the basics in terms of what to expect, information about the site, about safety, about security, about the products we make. So, that is kind of table stakes for everyone. Something that was unique to the returners program is that we partnered with one of our colleague resource groups, which was the Pfizer Women's Resource Group, to create a buddy system for our returners. So this is someone who's not in their department, not in their reporting structure, not a technical expert that they're asking questions to, but just someone who, if you're like, hey, I forgot how to get to the cafeteria, or hey, remind me, how we do this or that. Someone who can just kind of be a sounding board and start building that network on their behalf, recognizing that they have been out of the workforce for a period of time, and it may take them a little bit to maybe have that comfort in building their own network. So that's something that I'm really proud of, as well as just working generally to plug returners into our colleague resource group. So we have 7 colleague resource groups getting ready to launch an 8th at the site. So that's, women, veterans, our Black community, Native Americans, Latino, Global Asian Alliance, disability. Who did I miss? Yeah, well, you get the idea. We have a very broad range of these resource groups that are really intended to help build that community and help build that connection. And I think those have been definitely an asset to the returners as well. And then in addition to that, you guys have been a fantastic partner in terms of the programming that you offer. So we really kind of wrap those returners in care and all of that from both sides. So really appreciate the partnership in that.
Well, as do we. And Allie, I got to tell you, I'm always in awe because at least once a week on LinkedIn, I'm seeing something fabulous that you're doing. And it's like, wow, look what they're doing this week. And I know the recruiting team here is looking at that too. And when we talk to candidates, we say, go on their website. They're always doing something like super fabulous, such an inclusive, beautiful environment, really. And it's almost like you probably never sleep because you go from one fabulous thing to another fabulous thing, and it's really awesome.
Thank you, Arlene. Maybe one more thing specific to the returners and their onboarding process. We do have one new benefit that I think is especially beneficial to the returners, and that's our enterprise commute partnership. So we actually, Pfizer subsidizes the cost of vehicles. So if you have a group of 5 colleagues that want to carpool together, Pfizer will actually subsidize the cost of the vehicle. And then individuals just pay gas. And that is super helpful for people who maybe are not used to a commute, or even just to help maximize time on that drive in and out of work. So just another small thing that we've recently implemented.
That is super cool and beautiful for the environment, right? So
Arlene, can I just give a quick tidbit right there? My returner heard about our carpooling service with Enterprise, and she and another colleague who happened to be a returner as well did not have the full 5 people, but they've decided, you know what, we're going to carpool together ourselves. And it really, that program helped to inspire others to come together. And in this particular case, it was 2 returners that lived in the same area, wouldn't have necessarily known each other or met each other had it not been for the introduction of this program. So we're doing as much as we can to connect. And then one last thing, Allie is phenomenal in making sure the world knows what Pfizer Rocky Mount is doing. I was just saying this earlier today, and I love that she makes sure that we are always in the front line of what is going on and making sure that everyone knows all the phenomenal things that we do. So I will publicly tell you, thank you right here, Ali, on LinkedIn, because you keep LinkedIn very busy with what we're doing at Pfizer Rocky Mount. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, and you want to know what? I think it's so great, especially like kind of like why we're doing this today. If we can all share our great ideas, right? We'll all just make the world a better place. We'll make our working environments a better place. So, I think it's wonderful that she does do all of that because maybe it'll give other companies ideas to say, hey, we should do one of those too.
Yeah.
But Wanda, I want to go back to you and I want to talk about interviews. So, I know that at Pfizer, you have interview panels. So how did you select your interview panel? And then what guidelines did you give them to talk about you're interviewing a returner? There's going to be a break in their resume. They may not be a fabulous interviewee because maybe this is the first interview this person's had in 10 years. How did you coach the panel?
Well, first and foremost, again, Women Back to Work really helped with that process and having that pre-meeting and making sure that I knew, some of the ins and outs and making sure not necessarily do's and don'ts, but a little bit of guidance, some guide rails in doing the interview process. I took some of those tidbits and some of those notes to help with my interview panel. But one of the main things was thinking ahead of time and having a very specific interview panel for my returner interviews so that it was consistently the same people. They knew what to look for. They knew how to approach the interview because we had already met previously based upon here's what I'm looking for. Here's what you may see, what you may not see. Here's where I want you to be thinking about and how to connect what this experience may be with what we need here at the site. And then the other thing is that, again, Pfizer's very big on equity and diversity. So making sure that my interview panel was extremely diverse. And we do this for every interview that we do at Rocky Mount. It is a absolute requirement. And if it is not done, regardless of how wonderful the candidate is, nope, you need to start over because your interview panel was not diverse enough. Making sure that your panel doesn't look all like you, right? Making sure your panel doesn't have all of the same experience levels as possibly you may do, whether that is gender, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's experience level, whether it is just a totally and completely different perspective. One of the things that I like is a creative habit that I really like. It's called freshness. And you've heard me say it a few times today, is getting myself out of what I normally think and what I normally do and forcing something different. So I may have someone on the interview panel that is not part of my team, that's not part of my group, that's not even necessarily a part of what I may be looking for, but bringing them and letting them know what I'm looking for. And they bring a completely different perspective to the interview process that allows us, the people that may be the SMEs and whatever we may be looking for, right? The SMEs to be able to see something different, hear something different, experience something different in this interview process that broadens all of our work perspectives.
I love that. So Lisa, back to you. So we have started, and we're so excited to start returnship 2 or semester 2 of the program. So earlier you had mentioned you chose Rocky Mount and Kalamazoo as the first two. They're the largest sites. So what made you choose these two sites and then the new sites that we're working with, Rochester and McPherson, for the program? And then how did you determine what managers would be best? So like first you chose the sites, and maybe it's like a business org for anyone on the call listening. And then how'd you choose the managers to participate in the program?
Yeah, well, it all comes down to partnership, right? So we chose Rocky Mount and Kalamazoo because they are our largest sites. We had the most volume there. And so it made sense for us to look at those sites where we could impact we could reduce the openings, and we could impact the hiring metrics specifically around women. So Ali has been and continues to be a great partner in bringing in site leadership to the understanding of the benefit of this. So Rocky Mount and Kalamazoo, again, we started there, but based on the success of our partnership with Women Back to Work, we said, let's continue it. Why not? It's the right thing to do. So we then extended it to McPherson, Kansas, and Rochester, Michigan, because those are two sites that their volume of hiring is increasing. So we said, let's take it there. So again, I reached out to our site PX, which is our site HR partners and site leadership, introduced this partnership that we had based on the success. They were like, yeah, let's make this happen. So in terms of choosing which positions, though, I relied on our site PX, our site HR, to talk with the hiring managers there to see what opportunities they felt that we could provide to you. Because again, a lot of our positions, we are specifically looking for pharma experience. Now, there may be positions that you don't have to have pharma experience. So those are opportunities that we thought we could share with you. You and your team were great in reviewing those positions, determining whether or not you felt that you had a candidate pool and could be successful in presenting candidates to us. So, the process that you all used in terms of, we had manager intake sessions between the hiring managers, yourself, and our recruiters. So everyone was aligned. Everyone was reading from the same piece of sheet music. You all do a wonderful job of pre-screening the candidates, presenting them to us, us meaning myself, the recruiters, and the hiring managers, and then moving forward to scheduling interviews. So again, it was a win-win, continues to be a win-win for us.
Thank you. For us too. So
Lisa,
you were part of. Oh, go ahead, Allie.
I was just going to add one more thing, Lisa, to add in terms of process that we've seen work really well. So while we identified some initial scope for roles we wanted to consider for this program, one thing Rocky Mount has recently started doing is embedding this as an option in the intake call for all roles of a certain level. So as our internal recruiters are meeting with hiring managers, they're actually sharing about the program and asking, do you think this could be a fit? To then assess what roles might be good to send your way. So we've seen a lot of success in implementing that, just to further embed it in the process.
Great.
So I want to ask, we know just Pfizer is such a beautifully, wonderfully mature in their diversity, thoughts, actions, day in, day out business, right? What about companies that aren't that mature? Like when there's such and we're getting this question from the chat, and that's why I'm asking, just to reiterate. So what do you do when there's resistance from leadership, when there's resistance from your hiring managers, when there's just, what would your suggestions be when, someone says, oh yeah, we want to hire diverse people, but management won't buy into it or whatever? Who wants to take that?
Oh no, go ahead, Ali. I'll come back after.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I'd be glad to start. So I think one thing to keep in mind is recognizing what you can do in your role. I'm a big fan of small steps, right? Like even this program, I mean, this is a fairly large scale program that we've started, but we started with 2 sites. We didn't try to tackle the entire globe, right? We said who's ready and willing and has a passion for this. And so we started there. But even if you can't look at the scale of something like this, as a hiring manager, what elements of this conversation can you even just integrate into your hiring process? Look at gaps on resumes differently. That's an easy thing you can do today. Ask questions about it and try to understand what, transferable skills they may be able to bring from that time period. The diverse interview panels is a huge one, and also diverse pools. So hold yourself and your teams accountable, or encourage your leadership to make sure that for every position you are looking at a pool of candidates that includes different genders, different races, and that you're really giving kind of fair consideration across the board. The other thing I would say, I mentioned our colleague resource groups. That's something that anybody can kind of start within an organization. It doesn't have to be super formal. It can just be, a shared group where you can network and find connection with others. So even if your company is not necessarily pushing that from the top down, there's a lot that you can do from any seat to help support that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One thing I would say about that, especially the colleague resource groups, they are a fantastic resource for our communities, right? Everyone knows someone. So if you have a pool of people that are coming together, sharing likenesses, then they can take that back to your neighboring community and say, hey, listen, guys, we're looking for someone that has these sets of skills, whether it is, an organization that they may be a part of. It could be the PCA, it could be a local or neighborhood, a sports team or something of that nature, right? It could be anything within a community where the job posting may not show up, but people can always come together and bring that back. So letting people know, no, we want you. We want your insight. We want your help in us finding the right candidates and finding the right people that will be a part of our culture and be a part of our team. And I love what Ali said about the interview panel, making sure you have that mix. So when she said diverse interview panel, it is making sure you have the mix of gender, the mix of ethnicity, the mix of experience level, and then the mix of your subject as well, or your functional area, or even department for that matter. Because if you have everyone, if you're looking for an engineer and everyone that's on your interview panel is an engineer, more than likely you have the same train of thought in some way, shape, or form. So no, pull it out. Get someone that may be part of a cultural team, or maybe part of your security team, or someone that could be a part of the labs, and pull them in, because they're going to give you a new and different perspective on the person. And one thing I would say that I like to do in all of my interviews is I like to ask a provocation question. And it turns people, they're like, wait, what? Where did this come from? Because you're very structured in your interview process. But I like to ask people something completely off the wall, normally towards the end of the interview, to give you a different perspective. And it might give you a little bit more enlightenment into who they are, what they've done, what they've experienced in life, whether they are a returner or not, is giving you a little bit something different about a person. You want to make sure that the person is right for you as well, right for the team, right for the group, right for the culture. So it's just something to add a little bit more, add a little bit different. I love the idea of always making sure there's that mix. So when we're saying diversity, making sure that we're clear, that's a mixture, right? That is a true mixture.
Wanda, and I love that, when you ask that question, do you kind of physically see someone go like, this is my sweet spot, or, oh, let me tell you, and do they get super excited about this question?
It's a pretty off the wall question. So normally people are like, wait, what? Where did that come from? I've never been asked that before. So it changes it, and it's done on purpose, right? It changes your brain waves. It changes your mindset. It pushes in a level of playfulness to where you're forced outside of your normal train of thought, and you're still in an interview, so you're going to answer the question, right? So
Right.
it just forces something different, and then it gives you that perspective of who they really are, and not just necessarily a representative. So I love that. And the returners were fabulous with the question, because they had so many different experiences.
Yeah. So, Lisa, I want to go back to you, because there have been some questions in the chat. We went from semester 1 or returnship 1, and now we're in returnship 2. So, there were some best practices, things that you liked that was done, that we all did collectively the first time around, that you wanted repeated the second time around. So can you share with the audience what were some of those things that you thought, we did it the first time, it was great, we're going to do it the second time?
Sure. Yeah, I would definitely say the best practices were making certain that we had manager intake meetings. I mentioned this before, so that you and
See,
your
not
team
just me, it's everybody.
you and your team could really understand the positions themselves, right? Because you don't want to be like throwing resumes and seeing if they stick. You want to present resumes and candidates. So making certain that you walked away from our manager intake meetings with an understanding of the position, being able to ask questions, making certain that you knew who our internal Pfizer team was. I've typically run point on this, but again, it's making certain that we're all aligned. The vetting that you did of your candidates, excellent. Presenting them to our hiring managers, and really speaking to why these individuals, these women, left the workforce, because that's, people are curious about that. So the best practice that really worked well for us was the vetting of the candidates, our collaboration, presenting them, and then also making certain that you stayed with the candidate from the beginning to the end, so that although you're an outside agency, our hiring managers really felt like you were part of Pfizer. You understand our core values, what's important to us. So I would say, that was the best practice, I would say. And it worked in semester 1. It continues to work in semester 2.
Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. And I have to say that there's been many times where the recruiting team will say, Arlene, this person really emulates the joy, the core value of Pfizer in the joy. And then they talk about, when we find candidates, and I always think of Allie's posts, I'm like, oh, this person's perfect for Rocky Mount. They're going to be Allie's new best friend. So it's been wonderful learning about your fabulous company. Allie, I want to talk about a success story, and Wanda shared hiring a returner that had an 8-year break. But I know there was another really great success story that we're super proud of, and I know you're super proud of. So would you mind sharing that with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So you had asked initially about any hesitations that hiring managers had or concerns. And I just wanted to highlight how much this program actually meant to our hiring managers and how much they embraced it. So we had one of our hiring managers, Shannon. He supports our automation department here. And initially he submitted analyst type level automation position for you guys to do some sourcing for. And you found a number of great candidates, but the top candidate, Peyton, he was ready to make an offer, but he actually paused and he reached out and he said, you know what? It's not the position we initially asked about, but I actually have a higher level supervisor position, and I think it could be a great fit for this returner. So actually, the candidate was offered a higher level position than initially expected, which I think just really shows how much that the company and the hiring managers have embraced this program and recognized the value in the talent that you guys are bringing to the table.
Thank you. And I think, and I remember getting that. And I'm like, wow, when a hiring manager looks at a candidate to see, and I know both positions reported to Shannon, but to say, you know what, she's got more, she can do more. Let's give her more and talk to her about a higher level position was really pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That was very exciting for us too. And can we just say that she was a veteran?
Yeah, she's great.
So we love to shout that out too. So lastly, you all have so much knowledge and so much experience to help other organizations, help other companies to do what Pfizer is doing and what you all do every single day. And that's to bring diversity and equity to the workforce. So I'd love to say, if you could share one piece of advice, give one golden nugget to the people who are on this call today, that wanted to better diversity in their workforce, what would that golden nugget or piece of advice be? And Lisa, we'll start with you. The golden nugget.
The golden nugget. I would say be open. Have an inclusive mindset. Be open. Life is all around us. It's not just here. It's all around us. So when we're open and we have an inclusive mindset, we have the opportunity to see things, to see people, versus just looking at them through one set of lens.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much more, right? There's so much more than that piece of paper. There's so much more than that gap. There's so much more than all of it. So thank you. I love that. Wanda, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually going to piggyback off of Lisa a bit because she's right in our core value of equity, right? In terms of being inclusive. The next piece would be is to act with integrity. When you say that you're going to have diversity and equity and inclusion, ensure that it truly is that, right? Make sure that there is that true mix. You may not have a true DEI program at your company, at your
Yep.
site. What you can do as a hiring manager is ensure that you have a true mix as part of your interview process, ensuring you have a mix of ethnicity, a mix of gender, a mix of experience, and even possibly a mix of functional roles or functional areas, because it's going to bring you so much more value and enrich the interview process. And more than likely, your candidate pool that like your final 2 or 3 that you're really choosing from are going to be that much more enriched as well, because you have this differing perspective, and it's more of like a whole, for lack of a better way of saying it, you have a whole brain, right? You brought all these different parts and pieces that you've come together to now make a true whole look at a particular candidate and not just a one-sided look. So get out of your normal way of thinking and out of your normal way of doing, and ensure that you have a true mix, because it's going to be better for you and it's going to be better for your process.
Why be normal, right?
Why be normal? No one likes normal.
So Allie, the final golden nugget, the final piece of advice.
Yeah, so I think mine is do something today. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the big program that's 100% fleshed out in terms of what you're going to do. Take a small step today, decide what that's going to be, and go for it. Whether that is the diverse interview panels, whether that's reaching out within the community to specific groups, no matter what that looks like. When Lisa and I went to pilot this program, what was it? It was like 8 weeks that we went from idea to first hire, right?
Yeah.
So we learned, we're evolving, we're making some changes. We could have sat on it for a year, right? And maybe made it perfect. But instead, we have returners working for us today because we were willing to take that step. So I would just say, think about what your next step is and take action today.
I love that. And I will say that there are times when we will talk to a client about a program and how are we going to do it for months and months and months and months. And when we first had that call with Lisa, and she talked about, look, we're looking at end of June, we want offers. Can you do it? And Sonu and I, our founder, we said yes, and then we hung up and we're like, oh my God, can we do this? But when the buy-in is there, when the hiring managers are looking at the resumes, when they get them, when they're setting up interviews, when they've embraced this program, then it makes it easy. Yeah. So
one thing for sure is you beat your timeline, because my hire was mid-June.
Yeah.
So you definitely beat your timeline. Yeah. It's fantastic. We loved it.
Yeah. So Lisa and Wanda and Allie, I thank you all so very much. One, for your commitment to diversity, and then also sharing your expertise and your insight today. I truly feel that there's so much that was shared today that people can go back and do something today, right? And I thank you for your golden nuggets and your pieces of wisdom. To our audience, thank you for everyone who attended today. And I listening to these phenomenal women, these women who are trailblazers, who don't just talk the talk. Pfizer walks the walk. They live diversity every single day, and it's really, my honor to be their partner, because they really are so fabulous. And what you've seen today is how they are every single time that I deal with anyone at Pfizer. This is how fabulous they are. So I do hope that you got a golden nugget, you got some great insight, you got some actionable items to help bring more diversity and hopefully more women into your workforces. So I think it was both Lisa and Allie who talked about leadership from the top down. And Allie also talked about do one thing today. So, it starts with a conversation. And so hopefully information today allows you to have a conversation with someone in your organization, someone, maybe it's just in your business unit or your department, whatever, to start talking about diversity. Ladies, thank you so very much. This was wonderful. For everyone, thank you for attending. If you want to learn more about the fabulousness of Pfizer, please go to their website. And if you want to see all the great things that the Rocky Mountain site does, Allie Morrison is your girl. Link in with her on LinkedIn, and you will be as awed as I am every single day at the many wonderful things that she champions. And I'm serious; it's like a daily thing. So please follow Pfizer. And then if you'd like to learn more about Women Back to Work and the things that we think are wonderful that we get to do every single day, please check us out at womenbacktowork.org. Thank you all so much, and have a fabulous rest of your day.
Arlene, thank you. And thank you to the Women Back to Work team.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.